coach, and it's an honor to present in front of you all today. So, quick poll. Raise your hand if you, you can see me go. Raise your hand if you have received some sort of advice or a suggested next direction or decision to make from someone you were connected to. Whether this be a parent, a mentor, any piece of advice, just raise your hand. Okay? Now keep your hand raised if that suggestion actually did influence the decision you ultimately made, the next step that you took, or, now we're both blacked out, or the steps that you continue to take. Okay. So as you can see from our poll, all of us have been influenced by someone that raised us, someone that gave us a piece of advice, someone we admire, someone that created an image of what our lives or a piece of our lives should look like, based off of their understanding of what a good life looks like, of what a successful life looks like. And we walked in those steps with those suggestions, with those pieces of advice, because we trusted those individuals. But many of us have gone so far as to taking in what other people that we trusted, taking their advice, that we are living in situations or in phases that lack joy, lives that feel a little bit inauthentic, or lives that are missing something we can't quite put our finger on. And it's because there has been a design or an image or a vision that was created for our successful life, our good life, our loving life or loving family that we bought into or that we moved towards, subconsciously or consciously. And I was one of these individuals. So I am Latina. I was born and raised in the West Bronx, New York City. I am a first-generation American, and I was born into a very strong house of women, and with a very unique look at what success was based on a unique set of what womanhood looked like. And all of these things, all of these components of my life pulled me in different directions towards what my life should look like if I wanted to be successful. I needed to be rich. I needed to make sure I provided for everyone. I needed to reach accolade and level of prestige that no one else did before because I was American and I was underrepresented, right? And I did all of this, moving towards being pre-med. I did my bachelor's in neuroscience. I did neuroscience research for 6 years. I did my first year in a PhD program at Emory University in neuroscience because I did love the neuroscience. And it took the man I love to say, "You're unhappy," for me to be like, wait a minute, is this even about being happy, right? Is any of this about being happy? For me to hear myself, for me to take a step back and say, wait a minute, is that really the life, the person that I want to be? Where did this idea that that's the lifestyle I have to live, that's the career choice I have to make come from? Because it didn't come from me. And in that self-discovery, in a path of personal and professional development, I realized that so many of us, we are walking in lives that were designed for us, or parts of our lives, either subconsciously or consciously designed for us. And we need to feel and learn how to use our own power to design the lives that we call and we claim as fulfilling in ourselves. We design based off what we want, or continue to live a life that's been designed by others. This is the power of my work. My intention as a leadership and empowerment coach is to do the former. It is to help individuals unleash the power of their personal truths by finding it and overcoming professional and intimate challenges and designing a fulfilling life that they truly love. I do this specifically, I specialize in working with women and first-generation Americans. I do one-on-one coaching and group coaching, both online and in person, and this is curated either to the individual who has a special challenge they want to overcome, a special part of their life that they want to design, or for organizations who want to bring in someone to help build their junior staff, for example, their leadership skills, their confidence skills, their X, Y, and Z skills. And in doing this, if we take a step back and we ask, okay, what would society look like if everyone walked around with a life that was designed by someone else, someone that they trusted? Well, you would see individuals who lack motivation. If you think you have no control over being a CEO in a Fortune 500 company, right? You're not going to feel that zest to be at work every single day because you didn't decide that. You actually wanted to be a seamstress. You actually wanted to be a painter. You actually wanted to do X, Y, and Z. And that breeds into every level of an organization, every level of a community, every level of our lives, and we start to lack innovation. We start to lack dynamic leadership because there's no zest that comes from within, because there's no sense of ownership over that life. There's no power, there's no self-awareness, and instead, with the work that I do, I have equipped individuals with the techniques to feel confident in their approach to life and their careers, stimulating motivation and zest to be a leader in all places. And this breeds innovation, this breeds joy, this breeds empowerment in all of us, and this is really what the world needs, and what we all need in our lives. So unleash your power and design your life. Thank you.
Okay, can I start some trouble just right off the
Sure.
bat?
I'm all about it.
So I'm 100% or 99% agreeing with what you said. It's the whole difference between capitalism and communism. Right? You let people do what they want for their own rewards, you get 1,000 times more productivity. But the 1% is, what about like bad habits? Like, you think heroin is going to make you feel better and get rid of your pain, but in fact the reason why you hurt all over is because you're doing heroin and it's beating up your nerves and in other words, so someone outside of your life might say, well, why don't you ease back on the heroin, maybe things will be better, instead of just doing what you want to do all the time, and what you want to do is really a bad habit. And sorry to be trouble.
No, that's fine. I actually, I invite those questions, especially when it comes to addiction, because I did addiction research.
Okay.
And if you sit down with an individual and actually ask them about any bad habits, whether it be addiction or not, when you coach someone and guide someone and ask the right question, you find the root of that is never actually wanting to do that habit. It's never actually wanting to live that life. It's always deeply rooted in some level of fear, some level of desiring something else. And yes, there are habits that are physical, and addiction can override the brain and override our motivation systems. But that's where the guidance comes in and the coaching comes in. Because when you can get to the root of why we do most of the things that we don't necessarily want to do, it's coming from fear. And fear can be overcome with courage, with growth, with faith in oneself. And the best way to build all of that is to feel like we have ownership over creating a life or designing a life that we want and taking the steps towards it.
Very good, very good.
Any more questions?
Great presentation. You're a very motivated speaker. Awesome job.
Thank you.
What you're doing is great. It has great purpose. Women love it. But are you limiting yourself and not sharing it with the men as well? Just because you are a female, you've walked that path. But just because you're a female, I think men could greatly benefit from having your services marketed to them.
I love this question. I invite this question. Thank you for asking it. I feel that there is a lack of access to this, and the lack of access to coaching of this magnitude of leadership and empowerment coaching are the people who aren't in the C-suites, right? So first generation Americans, many boards of executives have no women. And so how do these are the individuals I feel need it the most, the ones that I connect to the most. And I personally don't feel equipped to talk to a male about masculinity because I didn't live that. And so, yes, I am limiting myself, but I'm limiting myself because I can speak to that experience that my client may have in a way that I feel people who aren't on maybe in the executive levels or who are moving up the ladder towards executive levels may need that someone else may not be willing to give them.
I think sort of as I guess maybe a different variation of that, if you're thinking about those people who aren't necessarily facilitating that growth, you think about like a very all-white male C-suite. I guess my question sort of following on that would be, are there takeaways as someone who is white and male to be able to help foster more of that, even though I might not have any way of personally connecting with the people who are, taking a program like this and using the skills that you give them, to help kind of break through that glass ceiling that organizations have.
Let me make sure I understand your question. You're asking, as a white male, for example, if my experience is not similar to those that I want to bring up the ladder, how can I help foster that learning?
Sure, yeah, and how do you promote that kind of broader equality that I think, you want to see more of in workplaces?
Yes. I believe that a lot of that has to do with culture in organizations. A lot of that has to do with the unique connection you may have with an individual with that relationship, whether it's a mentorship, partnership, or just talking to someone. That yes, you may come from different levels, you may come from different levels of privilege, you may come from different levels of experience, but it's what the intention of that relationship is that helps foster it, right? So I can connect to you because we both work at MERS, we're both interested in prospering in this regard, and finding those seeds and breeding that culture of that relationship in that intention to help foster that, you will find the unique necessary components and characteristics that will help push that individual forward. Because we all have a coach in some regard. We all have that friend that coached us out of a terrible breakup, or a mentor that was like, okay, just because you got a B doesn't mean you're gonna never get into med school, right? And I think so that to answer your question, I think it comes from intention in finding the unique characteristics that do bring commonplace, because everyone, I feel, has that commonality that can be the seed towards pushing the relationship and the individuals forward.
So you are gearing this more towards professional working women. Are you doing anything with schools or working with teenagers or anything like that?
Yes. So right now I'm not, and that's primarily because I'm doing work with college students, like not high school age, but college students. I do work with them and I coach them as well. And that's where the element of first generation comes in and organizations come in, because I do have worked with nonprofits that I'll bring in just to work with their single mothers, their teenage mothers, for example, individuals who are younger. I feel that they have a particular mindset, they have a particular way of being talked to that I have not mastered yet, so I don't advertise it as what I do, but I have done that.
What are some of your next steps in running a business?
So my next step is to actually build out what is the business development plan. So everyone has seen that sheet where it's like the customer, what is your KPIs and all that stuff. Get more of the foundational business elements. Expand on the connections and the workshops that I'm offering, some marketing. And in figuring out more about my audience to engage them more and to breed those clients, which I feel like all of us are doing, so I maybe gave you a redundant answer, but yes, that's my answer.
Sure.
And finishing my degree and my master's at Northwestern.
So somebody engages with you as a coach, a mentor. How does that relationship look?
As if I'm in the position of the coach.
Right, you're the
Okay.
coach.
Yeah.
A young professional comes up to you. Do you identify the problem? How do you work? Do you meet on a weekly basis, telecommunicate, or how?
Yeah,
how do you work?
I do 1 hour sessions once a week at a minimum with individuals, and I try to do at a very minimum a 3-month span. And in that first session, it's all about discovery, right? So the individual will come with a specific problem that they have. So for example, I can't break the ceiling to get a promotion. Point blank period. I can't figure out my finances properly. I feel like I have an issue. They'll come to that place, and I will, when I say coaching, I mean I ask the guided questions, I'll listen, I'll be the bouncing board for what they're saying. I help them hear themselves and figure out what it is that's actually causing me to not break that ceiling. What it is I actually fear that may not be letting me get to that next level. Once the discovery phase occurs, then the individual has the ownership, and with that coaching, more of that coaching, we figure out, okay, what are the steps that I can take to help me get out of that, change that mindset, give myself permission in that way. How can I show up in the world to overcome that original challenge and change what is the root of the problem that that challenge comes in? Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Any last one?
Do you also thought doing coffee session with a group of students or a group of
From the university?
yeah, and
Yeah.
about those are struggling with your classes, and sometimes they can learn from each other, and also with the coach got it from you.
Yeah, so I have set up a couple of different connections where, for example, in March, I'll be connecting with the Women of Color Network, and I'll be having basically a session with them where it is that stuff, where it's like coaching, group coaching, where we're all here, we're talking about what are the issues, and reading it from that, and building those relationships and those connections that essentially will become those scenarios.
And also there's, I think one area, and if you discovered it, there are a lot of international students come and they get homesick.
Mm-hmm.
And the first semester is really, they're finding moving. Some of them really quit and go back.
Yeah.
Home. One of my cousin was, and he was in the same spot. And do you have a way of reaching them out easily?
Not right now. That is something that I've been considering though, because I am a Posse alumni, Posse Foundation alumni, and the mission of Posse, which was the group that essentially allowed me to do my bachelor's, is that you come in with a group of 10 individuals, so that doesn't happen, right? So you're getting homesick, you're feeling the loneliness, you're feeling the challenge of being a STEM graduate, for example, all of these things, but you have your Posse to help you push forward, to help coach you. You have that mentor that's going to help you overcome that barrier. So I have been thinking about that, and thank you for that suggestion. I haven't quite figured out how I would capture that audience yet, though.
The last time in startup, there was one group, one of my friends was there to do the mentorship programs for the
Mhm.
community. I don't know where they end up, and I think a couple of the students still trying to run it in the campus.
Yeah.
And also reach them out. There are a lot of students, they really need that.
Yeah. Well, let's connect after this, and I would love to hear more about that.
Yeah, that's really.
Who is your coach / mentor?
I have a lot. I have a lot of different mentors. I have mentors that I've never even met in person. Personally, my coach is Oprah's life coach, which is like Martha Beck and Rhonda Britton. These are two women who are master life coaches. They have their own unique style. Like Rhonda Britton does fearless coaching and fearless conversations. And so those would be the first ones that I would say are my coach, because they are always breeding some level of insight, some level of like, oh snap, I didn't even think about that, right? Like where it's like in my face. And I would say you too, right? So like some of the workshops that
thanks for your presentation. I think it's wonderful and very inspiring. So earlier you were talking about helping women access the C-suite, right? Bringing some equity to boardrooms, et cetera. Have you come across, thought about, facilitated, worked with women who actually attain that status and then transform that C-suite? In other words, different models of leadership that are maybe more female-centered, that are more productive. In other words, that could school the guys rather than just let us in the door. Does that make sense?
Yes, that question does make sense, and I'm just thinking back towards the individuals that I've worked with. And that's a challenging question for me to ask because I do workshops and I do them about a specific, or I have done workshops and I do them about a specific topic, but it's open to whoever comes and I don't take that data in. Primarily because I want to level the playing field, because there are executives on that C-suite that don't even have their own style of leadership, they just have their own idea of what leadership looks like, right? And so for me, it's like, I want you to come as you are, and we're gonna build these skills that are actually leadership skills. So that when you get to that position, there is no need for you to have to be like, oh, I need to work on self-awareness. You've been self-aware all this time. Oh, I need to build my confidence, or I need to figure out what my derailers are when I'm stressed out. You've already been working on that. It's just been a different name in a different place. So in that regard, I'm not sure that I have worked with executives or women that have broken that ceiling, but I have tried to level the playing field because by doing that and just taking individuals as they are with the coaching that I do.
In that way, that just an idea, maybe interesting to partner with those women who already are at that level, and then maybe you co-facilitate with their teams of women below them. Here's how we can make more space, here's how we can push this out so that more of you can get to this level, and really using those as strategic partnerships to build within an organization.
That's a really good point.
Like
Write that down in my head. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting thought, especially because both, male, female CEOs that I've worked for, one of the things that they are somewhat reluctant but ultimately willing to share is that it's incredibly lonely. I mean, it's, you run your own business, it is incredibly lonely, and I can only imagine that you're on, you're performing all the time. This is sort of like the ultimate, movie, prestige version of you're performing 100% of the day, and I can only imagine that's multiplied, in a situation like you described, where that leadership position has been attained by a woman in a mostly male-centric or masculine-centric sort of company background. But yeah, a little less loneliness maybe.
Yeah.
As you had touched on earlier.
Not to mention the organizational culture. How do you shift it from that, right? Because that's so taxing.
Are there any tools to help for the men to help the women that you're coaching? By addressing things differently, working with the female.
I'm of the opinion, bring in a coach. I'm of the opinion, bring in a consultant. I'm of the opinion, bring external, because they will be able to point out what you already don't know that you do, or what someone else in your company might do, with an unbiased lens. And those are the best ways to give you those pointers, to give you those techniques, because each individual is different. We all come with our own unconscious biases. We all come with our own setups that were given to us when we were 7 years younger and below, right? That we walk around blindly with. And so I'm of the opinion, bring in people who are trained to do this, instead of it by yourself seeking to gather that information, because that will transform the entire organization towards working together. It's not enough for just one individual, right? So bring in a coach, bring in a consultant. That would be my response to that.
Then how do you make the transition? Because I think at bottom what we're talking about, to have a more equitable company, one that respects the contributions of women as well as men, trans individuals as well as straight. We could talk about differences forever. But how do you make the transition to changing the culture? Because isn't that something that inherently has to come from within? So the external give folks, the coaches give the tools, and then it's really comes down, rubber meets the road, when the leaders, people in positions of leadership actually change the culture.
So from my training, my response to that is different for every company. And I know I keep saying it's different for each person, but it really is, because you might have an organizational culture that has a very diverse leadership, and that leadership is basically a figurehead, right? And so even if you were to say, come into each organization and say, oh, the leadership needs to establish a new set of values that they train each individual in and during onboarding so that we can shift the culture, I might not trust the leaders. I might not trust the CEOs, right? And so that style might not work for that company. Whereas if you're working with someone that has a flat organization, right, where there's no CEOs, how do we change that culture? What if they are conflict avoidant, for example, right? How do we approach that situation? So it's different how to change the culture, because the culture is tacit. It's not spoken about. It just exists, and only when you're able to see it can you say, ooh, that'll be the key towards the path of changing it, right? So, sorry, but
Good answer. No, that's
But
a
it
great
depends.
answer. I think it's a tough thing,
Yeah.
because if you're hired to go in and coach, and the leadership isn't aware, you're helping them find the blind spots, and maybe culture and what they're doing to sustain a not productive culture is one of the blind spots.
exactly. His name. We did a case study on. I think his name is Dalio, but an organization that has a very strict set of rules with feedback, for example, and in every single meeting that they have as a team, people have to call out feedback immediately. Like, it's just like someone will be presenting, it's like, you're talking too low, I don't understand what you're saying, da da da. And it bred a culture of that feedback that was kind of combative. Like, I think that there's something underlying what you're saying. I think you're becoming too tough, right? And from us externally, right, we're just like, when we were doing the case study, we were just like, this is not safe. Like, this is not okay. But when you talk to the individuals actually in the culture, they were like, no, this is great, right? Like, my leadership skills, my confidence, my ability to show up has up-leveled, and I love this style of leadership, right? But, and so that goes to your point, because I wouldn't know that until I inserted myself into the culture to know and to assess what it was, to know that the way that if that needed to change, how to change it. Because I'm on.
Do you have any events coming up?
Not right now. Not on the calendar. But I was prepared for your question. And I have all the ways that the community can know. So essentially, at this point, I am looking for connections. Looking for connections to what we were talking about, executives that may want to bring me in to do leadership training, to do a series of workshops, to do individual coaching or anything of that sort, as well as coaches who have their own practice, right, that have essentially built this up just to figure out what are the strategies that different people use and collect information on that. And you can find me here on Facebook and Instagram at WEmpowermentC, or you can find me at my website at any time.
Okay. Thank you so much.